The message came on a Tuesday. All across Earth, every screen showed the same thing: a face that wasn't human. People stopped in streets, offices went quiet, and children pointed at classroom displays. Humanity held its breath. Commander Lisa Wells watched from the control center of the Earth Defense Coalition headquarters. At 42, with short brown hair streaked with gray and eyes that missed nothing, she had prepared for this moment her entire career. Yet nothing truly prepares anyone for first contact. "Signal strength is steady," said Officer Paul Blake, his fingers moving quickly over the controls. "Translation software is running at 97% confidence." The alien on screen had bluish skin, 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern, and no visible nose. When it spoke, its mouth moved in ways that seemed almost painful. "We are the Vexari." The translation appeared as text beneath the alien's face. "We come in peace and friendship to the people of Earth. We have observed your transmissions and find your species worthy of contact." President William Harris stood beside Commander Wells. He wiped sweat from his bald head and whispered, "Is this really happening?" "Yes, sir," she answered. "And we need to respond." 3 days later, scientists confirmed the Vexari ship had entered Earth orbit. It was massive, nearly a mile long and shaped like a curved blade. Smaller vessels departed from it, one heading toward the specially prepared landing area in Nevada. Commander Wells stood at the front of the welcoming committee. Behind her waited diplomats, scientists, and a small security team that had been ordered to keep weapons hidden but ready. The Vexari ship touched down without a sound, settling on the desert floor as gently as a falling leaf. A door opened and ramps extended. 3 aliens walked out. The middle one, taller than the others, wore ornate blue and silver garments. It raised all 4 of its hands in what appeared to be a peaceful gesture. "I am Zortak, ambassador of the Vexari Collective." The translator in Wells' ear spoke in a neutral voice. "We bring greetings from the stars." "Welcome to Earth," Commander Wells said, stepping forward with a practiced smile. "I am Commander Lisa Wells, representing the Earth Defense Coalition and humanity." The meeting moved to a conference room, where Zortak explained that the Vexari had visited many worlds and formed alliances with numerous species. They offered to share medical knowledge that could cure diseases, technology that could solve Earth's energy problems, and star maps that would show humanity their place in the galaxy. "Your species has great potential," said Zortak, its 4 eyes blinking in an unsettling pattern. "We wish to help you reach it." Dr. Karen Miller, Earth's leading xenobiologist, asked question after question about Vexari biology and culture. The aliens answered openly, seeming pleased by human curiosity. When they discussed technology, Lieutenant Ryan Jones presented a basic overview of Earth's capabilities, carefully edited to appear less advanced than reality. President Harris had insisted on this approach, wanting to keep some cards hidden. Everything went smoothly until the 3rd hour. Zortak was explaining Vexari governance when one of the other aliens leaned close and whispered something. The translators caught it only partially, but one word came through clearly: Nekrav. Later analysis would translate it as prey. Commander Wells noticed how Zortak's posture changed after that whisper: straighter, more confident, almost smug. She made a small hand signal to Security Chief Frank Martinez, who nodded almost imperceptibly. "We propose an exchange program," Zortak announced. "Allow us to bring more representatives to Earth, and we will welcome humans aboard our vessels. We have much to teach each other." Later that night, in a secure room deep under the Nevada facility, Commander Wells reviewed recordings of the meeting with her team. "Something doesn't feel right," she said, watching Zortak's movements again. "They're too eager, too willing to share." "Maybe they're just friendly," suggested Dr. Miller. Wells shook her head. "No species crosses the stars just to be nice. I want every word they say analyzed, every gesture studied, and I want our defenses quietly doubled." As she left the room, her phone buzzed with a message from President Harris. The subject line read, "Dinner reception for alien delegates tomorrow night. Formal dress required." Wells looked up at the night sky, where the massive Vexeri ship floated among the stars. She couldn't shake the feeling that humanity had just stepped onto a dangerous path. The grand hall sparkled with light from crystal chandeliers. Humans in their best clothes stood awkwardly next to the taller Vexeri visitors. Servers carried trays of food made special for both species. Commander Wells tugged at her dress uniform collar. She preferred her regular work clothes to this stiff outfit, but tonight was important. The Vexeri had been on Earth for a week now, and this dinner was meant to strengthen the new friendship between the two species. "Quite a show we're putting on," said Admiral John Carter as he joined her near the window. At 60, with a weathered face and sharp eyes, he had seen more battles than anyone else in the room. "The President wants to impress them," Wells replied quietly. Carter snorted. "I'd rather know what they're hiding. My team found some strange energy readings from their ship yesterday." Before Wells could answer, the room lights dimmed. A large hologram appeared in the center of the hall. It showed the head and upper body of a Vexari much older than the others. Its skin was darker blue, almost purple, and its eyes had a coldness that made Wells shiver. "Greetings, people of Earth. I am Keldora, Supreme Commander of the Vexari Collective," the translator spoke as the alien's mouth moved. "I regret I cannot attend in person, but duties keep me with our main fleet." President Harris stepped forward and gave a short speech about friendship and new beginnings. The Vexari commander responded with similar nice words. Everything seemed to be going well. Then they started to talk about technology. Keldora asked about Earth's defense systems and space capabilities. President Harris had been coached to keep his answers vague. "Our ships can travel throughout our solar system," Harris said proudly. "We have colonies on our moon and on Mars." The Vexari commander's 4 eyes blinked slowly. "Impressive for such a young species," he said, but his tone suggested otherwise. Ambassador Zortak approached the hologram and spoke quickly in their language. They thought the translation systems wouldn't catch it, but Earth technology was better than they knew. "Must we continue this charade with these primitives?" Keldora said in Vexari. "Their technology is barely past combustion engines." "Patience," Zortak replied. "The chattel species must not suspect until the fleet arrives." Admiral Carter's face went pale. His translator earpiece had picked up every word. He caught Wells' eye across the room and tapped his ear twice. Their signal for trouble. Wells made her way to him as casually as possible. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. "Every word," Carter said grimly. "Chattel species. Do you know what chattel means?" "Property. Livestock," Wells said, feeling cold despite the warm room. "They're talking about us like we're animals." "We need to tell the president, but not here," Carter said. "Too many eyes watching." The dinner continued with forced smiles. Wells watched the Vexari more carefully now. She noticed how they barely touched their food, how their eyes constantly scanned the room, measuring and evaluating. Not like visitors trying to make friends, but like shoppers checking goods before purchase. After the dinner, Wells, Carter, and 5 other high-ranking officials met in a secure room beneath the building. No electronic devices were allowed inside. "Chattel species," Carter repeated to the group. "One disrespectful word that tells us everything we need to know about their real plans." General Linda Powell, head of Earth's ground forces, spoke up. "We've seen this before in human history. Colonizers who viewed native peoples as less than human. It never ended well for the natives." "But we're not helpless natives," Wells said firmly. "And we have one advantage. They don't know that we know." President Harris looked older than he had at dinner. "What do you suggest we do?" Admiral Carter's answer was simple and cold. "We prepare for war while pretending to prepare for peace. And we need to know more," added Wells. "They shared some technology with us as a show of good faith. I want every bit of it taken apart and studied. There might be clues about their weaknesses." As they left the secure room, Wells stopped the president. "Sir, I need your authorization for something else. I want Samantha Reed from Intelligence to lead a team to hack into the Vexari database they shared with us. If they're hiding things, that's where we'll find them." Harris nodded slowly. "Do it. And Commander, keep this quiet. If they really see us as livestock, I don't want them to know that the animals are getting suspicious." That night, as the Vexari ship glowed in orbit above Earth, humanity began its silent preparations. Samantha Reed hadn't slept in 2 days. Her office in the basement of the Earth Defense Coalition building was filled with empty coffee cups and half-eaten sandwiches. 5 computer screens showed different parts of the Vexari database. What started as a cultural exchange now looked like something much darker. "Found anything?" Commander Wells asked as she entered the room. Samantha pushed her red hair away from her tired face. "Too much. These aliens are not who they say they are." She pointed to one screen. "This is what they showed us. Information about Vexari art, history, and basic technology. But hidden behind layers of code. I found this." The screen changed to show maps of Earth cities with strange markings. "Processing centers," Samantha explained. They'd done this before on at least 12 other planets. They come as friends, learn everything about the planet, then strike. Wells leaned closer. "What do you mean by processing?" Samantha clicked on another file. A video played showing aliens that weren't Vexari, smaller beings with green skin and 6 limbs. They were being herded into large buildings. None came out. "The Vexari don't just conquer planets," Samantha said quietly. "They harvest them. Every resource, including the people." Wells felt sick, but kept her face calm. "How long do we have?" "Based on messages I found, their main fleet is about 3 months away. They're just waiting for the advance team to finish mapping our defenses." Wells looked at more screens. "What's that word that keeps appearing? The one that looks like a lightning bolt." "Necrav. Their word for prey or food source." Samantha opened another file. "In Vexari culture, they believe they have the right to consume any species they consider less advanced. They see it as natural order, like we might see eating vegetables." Wells thought about the dinner, how the Supreme Commander had called humans a chattel species. So that word wasn't just an insult. It was a classification. They've already decided what we are to them. "Yes. And there's more." Samantha showed a list of planets. These worlds were all contacted by the Vexari in the last 100 years. All had developing space programs. All received the same friendly first contact. She paused. All are now listed as processed in their records. Wells stood up straight. "We need to take this to the Joint Chiefs right away. And Samantha, find me their weaknesses. Everyone has them." An hour later, in the Pentagon's most secure room, Earth's top military leaders watched Samantha's presentation in stunned silence. "So they see us as cattle," General Powell said when it was over. "Worse," Admiral Carter replied. "At least we give our cattle quick deaths. These Vexari, what they do is industrial." President Harris looked at each person in the room. "Options. We can't match their technology in a direct fight," said General Steve Jackson of the Air Force. "Their ships would destroy our defenses in minutes." "Then we don't fight directly," Wells said. "We've been giving them carefully limited tours of our military bases, showing them what we want them to see." "Meaning?" asked the president. "Meaning they think we're weaker than we are," Wells explained. "They don't know about Project Nemesis." The room went quiet. Project Nemesis was the most secret weapons development program on Earth. Even in this room, only half the people had clearance to know it existed. "That's theoretical technology," said Defense Secretary George Peterson. "Untested." "Not anymore," Admiral Carter said. "The prototypes are ready. Dr. Fisher confirmed it yesterday." Wells looked at the president. "Sir, I propose we activate Nemesis and prepare for war while continuing to act friendly toward the Vexari. They believe we're primitive and trusting. Let's use that against them." President Harris was silent for a long moment. Finally, he nodded. Do it, but nothing can leak. As far as the public and the Vexari know, we're still planning cultural exchanges and trade agreements." As they left the meeting, Admiral Carter walked beside Wells. "One disrespectful word," he said quietly. "That's all it took for them to sign their death warrant." "They called us prey," Wells replied. "Let's show them what happens when you hunt the wrong species." The underground facility was buried deep beneath a mountain in Colorado. No maps showed it. No satellites could see it. Even most of the government didn't know it existed. This was the home of Project Nemesis. Commander Wells and Admiral Carter rode the elevator down in silence. It took 5 minutes to reach the bottom. That's how deep they were going. "Have you met Dr. Fisher before?" Carter asked as the doors opened. Wells shook her head. "Only heard stories." "Is he really as brilliant as they say?" "More," Carter said, "and just as strange." They walked through steel hallways until they reached a large circular room. In the center stood a man with wild white hair and thick glasses. He was talking excitedly to a group of scientists. "Dr. Alan Fisher," Carter called out. "Your visitors are here." The scientist turned and blinked at them like he had forgotten they were coming. Then he smiled. "Ah, yes, the military folks. Come, come. I have much to show you." Dr. Fisher led them through his lab, pointing at strange machines and glowing containers. He talked quickly, using big words that Wells didn't understand. She interrupted him. "Doctor, please. Simple terms. What exactly have you created here?" Dr. Fisher stopped and adjusted his glasses. 3 weapons, 3 ways to destroy an enemy that thinks they're gods." He held up one finger. "First, nanite disassemblers. Tiny machines smaller than dust that eat technology from the inside out." He moved to a sealed container where gray powder seemed to move on its own. "They target specific materials. We can program them to ignore human technology and only attack Vexari metals and plastics." Carter nodded. "Second weapon. Gravitational singularity generators," Fisher said proudly. "Small black holes that last just long enough to tear apart ships, but collapse before they can grow dangerous." He pointed to strange round devices with deep dark centers. "And the third?" Wells asked. Fisher's face became serious. "The consciousness disruptor. It sends a signal that interferes with brain patterns. For humans, it would cause headaches. But for Vexari..." He pressed a button on a screen. A recording played. It showed a small piece of Vexari technology they had been given as a gift. When the signal hit it, the alien metal seemed to scream and then melted. "Their technology is partly organic," Fisher explained. "It shares some brain patterns with the Vexari themselves. This signal would drive both their ships and the aliens themselves into total confusion." Wells looked at the 3 weapons. "Will they work against their entire fleet?" "If we can deliver them properly," Fisher said. "The nanites need direct contact. The gravity weapons need to be within 10 miles. The signal can reach across space, but needs powerful transmitters." Carter turned to Wells. "So we need to get close." "We need to let them get close," she corrected. "Let them think they've won before we strike." For the next months, Earth prepared in secret. Regular people went about their lives, not knowing the danger. The Vexari continued their friendship visits, and humans smiled and welcomed them. Below the surface, factories built weapons day and night. Soldiers trained for battles unlike any fought before. Scientists studied every piece of Vexari technology they could get their hands on. President Harris met with Commander Wells in the White House garden, away from any devices that might listen. "Our satellite network detected multiple large objects entering the outer solar system," he said quietly. "The Vexari fleet is coming earlier than we expected." "How long?" Wells asked. 2 weeks, maybe less." Wells nodded. "We're almost ready. The ships are hidden. The weapons are in place. We just need the delivery system perfected." "Can Fisher do it in time?" "He says he needs 3 more days." The president looked up at the night sky. "Will it be enough?" Their fleet is massive. It has to be, Wells said. Because if we fail, humanity becomes just another processed species in their records. As they talked, the stars above them seemed to shift. Anyone watching carefully might have noticed that some stars were moving. The Vexeri had arrived early. The first attack came at dawn. Vexeri ships appeared over major cities across Earth. They were huge, casting shadows that turned day to night. People ran screaming in the streets as the alien vessels hovered silently above them. In the command center of Earth defense, Commander Wells watched the screens with a calm that surprised even her. Beside her, Admiral Carter and President Harris stood rigid. "They're positioning over every major population center," said Officer Blake, his voice shaking slightly. "No weapons fired yet." "They won't fire immediately," Wells said. "They need the infrastructure intact for processing." As if hearing her words, all screens and devices on Earth suddenly showed the same image: Supreme Commander Keldora's face. "People of Earth," the Vexeri leader said, his four eyes blinking in rhythm. "Your planet is now under the protection of the Vexeri Collective. Do not resist. Those who cooperate will be treated with mercy." President Harris looked at Wells. She nodded slightly. "This is President William Harris of Earth," he responded, his voice broadcasting to both the aliens and all humans. "We are a peaceful planet. We do not understand why you have positioned war vessels over our cities." Keldora's mouth formed what might have been a smile. "Not war vessels. Harvest vessels. Your species has been classified as necraf, a resource to be utilized by the collective. It is an honor. Your bodies and minds will serve greater purposes within our empire." Gasps echoed through the command center. Now everyone understood what they were facing. "We surrender," President Harris said, his voice flat. "Please do not harm our people. We will cooperate." Keldora looked pleased. "Wise decision. Prepare your major cities for landing parties. Anyone who resists will be processed without the usual preparations. That is, unpleasant." When the transmission ended, the room exploded with activity. "Is he serious?" General Powell demanded. "We're not really surrendering." "Of course not," Wells said. "But we need them to think we are. Get Captain Gregory Daniels on the line." Minutes later, the face of Captain Daniels appeared on screen. His ship, the Relentless, was supposedly Earth's most advanced warship, the one the Vexeri knew about. "Captain, you need to lead a surrender mission," Wells explained. "Take 3 ships. Approach the main Vexeri vessel with white flags and surrender terms." Daniels nodded, understanding in his eyes. "And the package?" "Deliver it personally," Admiral Carter said. "Make sure they take it aboard their ship." The surrender fleet launched an hour later. 3 Earth ships, small compared to the alien vessels, approached the largest Vexeri ship over New York City. They'd broadcast messages of peace and submission. On screens around the world, people watched what seemed like humanity's darkest hour. Many cried. Some prayed. Others raged against the apparent weakness of their leaders. Captain Daniels stood before the Vexeri boarding party, his head bowed. "We bring terms of our surrender, along with data storage containing all Earth's defense information and access codes to our systems." The Vexeri commander, a tall female named Grekta, took the offered package. It was a simple metal box with a glowing blue light. "The Supreme Commander will be pleased with your cooperation. Your species shows wisdom in accepting its proper place." As Daniels and his crew were escorted onto the Vexeri ship, he pressed a hidden button on his uniform. Miles below Earth's surface, Dr. Fisher received the signal. "Package delivered," he announced to Commander Wells. "Nanites activated." Wells nodded. "Now we wait." "How long?" "The nanites will multiply inside their systems for 6 hours before beginning disassembly," Fisher explained. "Then their ships will start falling apart from the inside." "And our people on those ships?" President Harris asked. Wells looked him straight in the eye. "They volunteered knowing they wouldn't come back. Captain Daniels and his crew are heroes. Outside, the massive Vexeri ships began landing parties. Aliens marched down ramps, carrying strange devices. They believed they were beginning the harvest of Earth. They had no idea they had just brought aboard the seeds of their own destruction. 6 hours passed like years. In hidden bunkers around the world, military leaders watched and waited. On the surface, Vexeri troops moved through cities, setting up strange equipment and scanning buildings. They mostly ignored the humans, treating them like animals that would soon be led to slaughter. Dr. Olivia Martinez sat in a small room deep under the Rocky Mountains. As head of the nanite program, she watched the progress on her screen with focused intensity. The tiny machines were spreading through the Vexeri flagship, copying themselves using materials from the ship itself. Status report, Commander Wells said as she entered the room. Nanite concentration has reached critical levels. Dr. Martinez replied without looking up. They're everywhere in their systems now, waiting for my signal to begin the real work. Wells nodded. The Vexeri are getting comfortable. They think we've given up. She looked at her watch. Time to show them otherwise. Activate the nanites. Dr. Martinez pressed a series of buttons on her console. Disassembly protocol initiated. Aboard the Vexeri flagship, Captain Daniels sat in a holding cell with his crew. They had been largely ignored after their surrender, just as planned. Suddenly, the lights flickered. A low groan seemed to move through the ship. It's starting, Daniels whispered to his people. Remember, when hell breaks loose, head for the escape pods. A Vexeri guard walked past, then stopped as his communication device made strange noises. He tapped it, looking confused. The device crumbled to dust in his hand. All across the massive alien ship, technology began to fail. Door controls stopped working. Weapons died in soldiers' hands. Communication screens went dark, then dissolved. Supreme Commander Keldora was in the middle of a victory speech to his fleet when his transmission platform collapsed beneath him. He rose from the rubble, 4 eyes wide with confusion. "What is happening?" he demanded. His second-in-command rushed in, panic clear in his movements. "Sir, our systems are failing everywhere. The ships in orbit report the same. All technology is dissolving. Impossible." Dora stormed to a window. Outside, he could see parts of his own ship simply falling away, turned to dust by invisible forces. In the skies above Earth, the massive Vexeri ships began to show visible damage. Pieces broke off. Lights went dark. Some smaller vessels simply fell apart, their remains raining down into oceans or unpopulated areas as Earth defense systems carefully shot down any debris heading for cities. Dr. Martinez watched the destruction on satellite feeds. The nanites are working perfectly. They're only targeting Vexeri materials, leaving Earth technology untouched. Phase 2, Wells ordered. Lieutenant Johnson, activate the consciousness disruptor. In another part of the facility, Lieutenant Eric Johnson sat before a large transmitter. Signal ready, he reported. Broadcasting now. The signal went out, invisible but powerful. It spread across Earth and into space, reaching every Vexeri ship and soldier. The effect was immediate. Vexeri troops on the ground suddenly stopped moving. Some fell to their knees, holding their heads. Others simply collapsed. Inside their ships, the aliens screamed as their minds were filled with noise they couldn't escape. "They're trying to send a distress signal to their homeworld," reported Officer Blake, monitoring alien communications. "Good," Wells said with a grim smile. "Let them call for help. Admiral Carter, your turn." Admiral Carter stood on the bridge of Earth's actual flagship, the Retribution. Unlike the small ships the Vexeri had seen, this vessel was massive and powerful. It had been hiding with 24 others behind Jupiter, shielded from Vexeri sensors by technology reverse-engineered from earlier alien communications. "All ships, move into attack formation," Carter ordered. "Bring the gravity weapons online. Today we teach the galaxy what happens when you threaten humanity." The Earth fleet emerged from hiding. engines burning bright against the darkness of space. As they approached the crippled Vexari vessels, the aliens finally realized the truth. They hadn't found prey. They had found predators. The Earth fleet moved with deadly purpose through the confused Vexari ships. Admiral Carter watched from the bridge of the Retribution as his vessels took up their positions. The Vexari ships, once so threatening, now drifted helplessly as their systems failed, and their crews struggled against the mind-disrupting signal. "All ships in position," reported his second-in-command. Carter nodded. "Deploy gravity weapons." Small black objects launched from the Earth ships. They floated toward the largest Vexari vessels, looking harmless until they activated. Then space itself seemed to bend around them. The effect was like watching paper being crushed by invisible hands. Massive Vexari ships crumpled inward, metal screaming as it was pulled toward impossibly dense points of gravity. The singularities lasted only minutes before collapsing, but that was long enough. Where mighty warships had been, only twisted debris remained. In the command center on Earth, Commander Wells watched the battle unfold. "Status of the escape pods from our surrender ships." 4 pods detected, Commander," Officer Blake reported. Captain Daniels and 11 crew members made it out. Wells allowed herself a brief smile. Some of the brave volunteers would survive after all. President Harris entered the room, his face showing both relief and horror at the destruction on the screens. "Is it working?" "Better than we hoped," Wells replied. "Their fleet is in chaos. The ones on the ground are incapacitated." Harris studied the largest screen. "What's that ship trying to do?" He pointed to a Vexari vessel that was attempting to move away from the battle. "Their command ship," Wells said. "Supreme Commander Keldora is trying to escape. Admiral Carter won't let that happen." On the Retribution, Carter had also spotted the escaping ship. "Target the command vessel. Gravitational singularity, maximum yield." The weapon launched, heading for the fleeing Vexari ship. But before it could reach its target, the alien vessel disappeared in a flash of light. They jumped to faster than light. An officer shouted, "They're escaping." Carter hit his communication panel. "Commander Wells, the Vexari command ship has escaped. They'll warn their homeworld." In the command center, Wells stayed calm. "That was expected. Dr. Fisher, are the probes ready?" The scientist nodded from his station. "Ready and programmed with the coordinates of every Vexari world from their own database." "Launch them now," Wells ordered. Across Earth, hidden silos opened. Sleek black probes shot into the sky, hundreds of them. Each contained a payload of nanites programmed to target Vexari technology and biology. Once in space, they accelerated to faster-than-light speeds, heading for the heart of the Vexari Empire. "How long until they reach Vexari space?" asked President Harris. 3 days, Dr. Fisher replied. "Faster than any warning Keldora can deliver." On the main view screen, the battle above Earth was ending. The remaining Vexari ships had been destroyed or disabled. Earth vessels moved among the wreckage, capturing survivors and salvaging technology. Admiral Carter's face appeared on the screen. "Victory in orbit, Commander. The Vexari fleet is destroyed." "And on the ground?" Wells asked. "The aliens are either dead or captured," reported General Powell. "Their technology has been neutralized. We're securing the landing sites now." President Harris stepped forward. "Open a channel to all Earth forces and citizens." When the channel was ready, he spoke clearly and firmly. "People of Earth, the invasion has been defeated. Our world is safe, but our work is not done. The Vexari threatened not just our planet, but our very existence as a species. They called us prey. They planned to process us like animals." He paused, his expression hardening. "We have sent our answer to their homeworld. Let the galaxy know that humanity will not be threatened, will not be hunted, will not be disrespected. One word, prey, sealed their fate." As he spoke, the probes sped through space, carrying with them the end of the Vexari civilization. The message was clear. threaten humanity at your peril. 5 years had passed since the day Earth fought back. Commander Lisa Wells, now Admiral Wells, stood at the large window of the Galactic Cooperative headquarters. The building rose high above the New Geneva skyline, its crystal towers gleaming in the morning sun. Below her, representatives from 12 different alien species walked through the gardens, talking peacefully. "Quite a view, isn't it?" said a familiar voice. Wells turned to see Admiral Carter joining her. His hair was completely white now, but his eyes were still sharp. "Sometimes I can hardly believe it," she admitted. 5 years ago, we didn't even know aliens existed. Now we're leading a coalition of worlds." Carter nodded. Amazing what shared trauma can do. All these species were victims of the Vexari. Now they look to us as protectors. They walked together toward the main meeting hall. Along the walls hung images from what historians now call the 3-Day War. Pictures of Vexari ships falling from the sky, Earth vessels rising to fight, the first contact with the Frillon, a winged species that had been next on the Vexari harvest list. "The last monitoring probe sent its report this morning," Carter said quietly. "The quarantine is holding. No Vexari ship has managed to leave their home system." Wells nodded with satisfaction. After the nanite probes had reached Vexari space, the effect had been total. Within days, their entire empire had collapsed as technology failed across their worlds. The once mighty species that had harvested dozens of civilizations was reduced to pre-industrial technology. Dr. Fisher's final contribution before his retirement had been a self-replicating field that prevented any advanced technology from working on Vexari worlds. "Will they ever recover?" Carter asked. "Not for at least 1,000 years," Wells replied. "The field will prevent it. By then, perhaps they'll have learned that other species aren't just food." They entered the great hall where representatives from former Vexari slave worlds sat around a circular table. Some looked almost human. Others had multiple limbs or unusual skin colors. All had suffered under Vexari rule. President Harris, now in his second term, stood to greet everyone. "The annual remembrance meeting is now in session," he announced. The lights dimmed. In the center of the table, a hologram appeared showing the names of worlds and species that had been destroyed by the Vexari before Earth stopped them. The list scrolled for several minutes. Billions of lives lost to the Vexari hunger. When the lights came back up, a tall blue being named Krell stood. He was the last survivor of his species. 5 years ago, my world was empty by the Vexari. I alone escaped. I had lost all hope until I received the human message." His large eyes turned to Wells. "Your message that the Vexari were defeated gave me reason to live again." Wells remembered the day they had broadcast that message across all frequencies, in all known languages, to all species who feared the Vexari. They threatened humanity. They called us prey. Now they are no more. You are safe. The meeting continued with reports from various worlds now rebuilding without fear of harvest. When it ended, Wells walked out to a small garden where a simple stone monument stood. On it were carved the names of every human who had died in the fight. Captain Daniels had survived, but many of his crew had not. Their sacrifice had saved not just Earth, but countless other worlds. A young alien child approached her, holding a small flower. It belonged to a species that looked like a cross between humans and cats. The child placed the flower at the base of the monument. "My grandmother told me humans saved us," the child said in careful English. "She said you are the most dangerous species in the galaxy, but also the most just." Wells smiled gently. "We're just people who refuse to be prey." As the sun set over New Geneva, lights came on in the Galactic Cooperative building. Inside, humans worked side by side with aliens from across the stars. The Vexari had meant to destroy humanity. Instead, they had launched it into the stars. All because of one disrespectful word.